Hi, I'm Wilhelm. Before I tell you about the killer thoughts, I want to share a personal story with you. A number of years ago, I took part in a spoon bending workshop by Jean Eng. Just for fun and curiosity. There were about 20 participants and they all had half a dozen of brand new spoons and forks in their hand. Jean talked about power, energy and thoughts, and then we did a meditation together, and then began to focus our thoughts on the spoon or fork in our hand. And after a little while, all these forks and spoon in our hand began to bend backwards. Absolutely amazing. Problem was, my fork and my spoon did not bend. I was the last one. I couldn't believe it. When suddenly they also began to bend backwards just like butter. Amazing. And I still have them here. These are the spoons and forks that I bent during that workshop with Jean Eng. Just for me to remind myself of the power of our thoughts. And this is what I want to share with you in my new video. It comes from a chapter in the book Me, 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 the Spider in the Web by Gabriele. And I think you will find it very interesting.
Imagine this person here is A, and he has one big weakness or vice, and that is jealousy. So one day he's going to a big party and right there his jealousy flares up. Big time. He is totally seized by extreme fits of jealousy. Luckily he doesn't act on it in any negative way as he finally gets a grip of himself and calms down. But what happens now with this jealousy power complex that he has generated? It doesn't just vanish on its own. No, thoughts are living entities and are looking for similar other thoughts to grow. I explained that in greater detail in my video Thoughts Are Alive. This thought complex will swarm out in this party and find somebody, let's call him person B, who also carries a tiny amount of jealousy in himself, according to the law of attraction. That is enough for this vagabond thought complex to cling onto him. Now this person feels the powerful rush of jealousy energy rising up in him. He gets totally infected by it, and because he has less self-control at this moment than A had, he is taking revenge and is acting out on it. Like for instance, he kills somebody in his jealous rage, like person C. This is how thoughts can affect other people who we don't even know or have any karmic or other connection with. As A has transmitted a part of his negative world of thoughts to another by way of telepathic influence, we can call him the instigator. The other person B is the perpetrator. And they are now bound to each other because the sad result is that they are karmically co-responsible for this murder. If we find this difficult to believe, let us take another analogy. Imagine here is a large water reservoir and we dump a drop of poison into the water. If now somebody takes this water and gives it to another person who then dies, we would definitely be responsible, wouldn't we? It doesn't matter if we poison the environment of water or the environment of air. We read the cosmic computer registers every quantum, for it is just. Each will be precisely allocated his part of the guilt, instigator as well as perpetrator. According to their share of guilt, both are involved and bound to one another. But the story goes further. Let's focus mainly on A and B for our example and forget C for a moment. Now, imagine that B is very clever and his crime remains undetected. Eventually B dies, and the moment his soul arrives in the soul realms, he becomes intensely aware of the immensity of his crime and soul burden. Besides his serious karma with C, he now suddenly learns that he largely committed his crime because of the negative thought complex from A which influenced him. Instead of trying to undo the karma, he is outraged and angry at A and tries to influence his accomplice. Through their common input in the repository planets, the soul of B can make injections like intensify an illness or drive A into extreme agitation, so that, for example, he can have a heart attack or an accident, nervous breakdown or depression, so that A might even end his own life here on Earth. This is a way how B could avenge himself if he is unwilling to forgive A. A, of course, will probably never know why these things are happening to him, unless he pays attention to the hints from the energy of the day. We read, if he were to recognize himself in his own causes, in his feelings of oppression, his thoughts, feelings, and irritations, in his anxieties, his aggressions, or in the reappearance of old programs deemed long since overcome, then, by way to the path of purification, he would be able to largely avoid the direct influence coming from the soul. But his guilt is dissolved only once the soul of the person whom he instigated into action by projection of his thought energies has forgiven him. The book gives us a further example, like in case where we were maybe a brooding person and even contemplating suicide. The thoughts that we emit and send out could perhaps be the last drop of bitterness in another person's inner pain so that he takes his own life. This would bind us together. But it's not just thoughts that can act as instigators. The written word is no different. Think of the internet, which many use to spread hateful, vicious, and disparaging thoughts, tweets, messages, or comments that cause countless pain and even death, as we know from the many, many young people who commit suicide because of cyberbullying. In Matthew 12, we read that after our physical death, everyone is accountable for every careless word he has spoken. Careless, of course, means anything that is negative, hate-filled, and against the law of love. Yes, we are responsible for every word we are thinking, saying, or writing. They are all nothing but energies. Besides, everything that we cause and send out, whether in feelings, sensations, thoughts, words, or actions, eventually comes back to us according to the law of cause and effect.
This video is not to scare anybody, but just to become aware of the immense power of our thoughts and words and how they affect others, and how we can resolve the karma that we have created with them. This is only a small part of a chapter in the book Me, The Spider and the Web, The Law of Correspondence and the Law of Projection by Gabriele, and there is a link to that book under this video. Thank you so much for having been with me here today, and I hope to see you in my next video.